All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get settled in for the last round of the evening. Let's get settled in. All right, we have our last round of council candidates. We have District 8 and District 9. 2 candidates for District 8, 3 candidates for District 9. For District 8, we have Mr. Michael Pinkston and Mr. Ted Mohn. For District 9, we have Ms. Sylvia Adamczak, Mr. Jim Arp, and Ms. Charlotte Robinson. All right. Just a quick refresher. I kind of like sitting in this chair. I feel like, you know. Talk show host of some sort.
Would you like your gavel back?
No, I want that thing. Keep that. I want to tell you that you have 1 minute to do a an opening statement, and then you'll respond to panel questions, which you will have 1 minute to answer the question initially, and then you will be given an option of doing a 30-second response if you choose to do so. At the end of the questioning period, you will also be allowed an opportunity to do a 1 minute closing statement. Everybody clear on that? All right. We will start with the opening statements of as I Pinkston.
Mayor. I'd like to start by saying that I've been married for 41 years. And in addition to that, I've served the military for 21 years, honorably discharged from the Vietnam War all the way up to the Gulf War. Upon retiring, I opened up a small business downtown. And for the last 19 years, we have successfully owned and operated a business, the climbing place, with 10 employees. I understand what it takes to run a business, budgetary requirements, and I just, really enjoy that. I think that one of the things that I would bring to council is the necessary leadership, the perseverance, the determination, and the commitment that it takes. Thank you.
Mr. Mohn?
Thank you, Mayor Pitts. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Thank you, the panelists, WIDU, and the Fayetteville Observer. My name is Ted Mohn. I grew up in a city called North Chicago, Illinois, joined the Army in 1982, came here to Fort Bragg in the Fayetteville area in 1997 as a single parent with a three-year-old and a 5-year-old. I retired in 2004 in the same neighborhood out in Western Fayetteville. I was annexed into Fayetteville in 2005. And that kind of got me, into the local politics. So I had 2 choices. I could sit back and whine and complain, or I could try to run for Fayetteville City Council and try to make a positive difference. I was elected in 2007 and in 2009 to the Fayetteville City Council. Spent some time working with Mr. Arp. And then in 2011, I chose not to run again as my son was transitioning from high school into college and a single parent, 17-year-old, 18-year-old. I had to tighten down a little bit, make sure he did the right thing. And so now that I have more time, I'm running again. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Panel, we're ready for the questions.
All right, let's get started with one that is a newspaper pet peeve, and I'm going to indulge it here, and that is that city officials often hold meetings with a small number of council members so that a quorum isn't present. And in that way, the meeting can be held without hitting the standards of the state's open meetings laws, which means it can be held behind closed doors without anybody from the media or anybody from the public being present. Do you approve of that? And what kinds of government meetings do you think should be held without the public knowing what's being discussed?
And we will start with Mr. Mohn.
Excellent question. Small group meetings for the purpose of excluding the public is unacceptable. There are times where you have to go in private meetings, and there's like 5 cases, and it's outlined in the North Carolina statutes. It's legal if the city's being sued, you're negotiating contracts. There's some economic development where if a company is considering to relocate here, the Chamber of Commerce and the city staff will come in and they'll try to get the council to potentially give some development incentives or tax breaks, and some of those negotiations can be done. But so unless if you're not following one of the 5 or the 4 the state statute authorized times you can meet closed doors, and you shouldn't be doing it. And the other one is personnel performance, like you're doing the evaluation for the city manager or for the city attorney. because the city council only hires 2 people, the manager and attorney, so their evaluations are not open to the public until afterwards.
Mr. Pinkston?
Well, I think that as long as there's nothing of personal disclosure in terms of what the meeting is, if you're dealing with personnel matters, that all meetings should be open. It's odd in the fact that most meetings, it's hard to get people to come out for a public hearing. And so the more public interest we can generate, the better the meeting can go. There really is no need, unless there's personnel issues, to go ahead and to hold a closed meeting. And what we can do is, I think we can do a better job. We use the paper, but only 30% of the people in Fayetteville read the paper or get the paper. We can use radio. We can use the community channel. We can certainly get the word out a significantly better job. We can use all of our radio stations. We can use WIDU. We can use all these great avenues to get the word out in order to generate more public interest of our meetings.
Rebuttals.
Oh, yeah. It's been a long night. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. We're still on rebuttals. I apologize.
Well,
Just to clarify, I'm not worried about where Mr. Arp has a cup of coffee with a constituent. I was actually speaking of meetings that have been deliberately called with small groups of city council members that are just below the quorum level for that specific purpose.
Okay, Mr.
And
White.
I do have a quick rebuttal.
Yes.
Perfect example, I was brand new to council, and the city manager set up a series of small group meetings to discuss the Fayetteville State Veterans Park. Instead of us all getting there at the same time, hearing the same information at the same time. So I declined to participate. I said I will not be part of that small group meeting, because it was definitely tied to money, it was tied to design, it was tied to content. We had different committees for that. So we all should have been sitting together and had all the information at the same time.
Anyone else? All right, next question.
The police department wants to put video surveillance cameras in high crime areas where the public gathers, including in downtown. Do you support adding the cameras, or do you worry that they might be an invasion of privacy?
I'd be glad to answer that. Thank you so much. It's a great question. I know we've already tried that. It was either in the early 90s or late 80s, and it met with disaster. Cameras were spray painted. I forget the price tag on those cameras was astronomical, in the $500,000 range. And to repair those things it was horrible. But I've thought about it since then, and in Europe that's pretty much the way it's done. Cameras can help the police officers and the police in actually identifying the perpetrator of crimes. I think if we could sell it to the citizens in such a way that it's for their safety and that we're looking out for them, I think we could do a better job. I just don't think the last time we sold it well, but if we looked at it in a different way, we could make it work.
Mr. Mohn.
Yes, I do support the limited use of surveillance cameras in public areas. Our police department, along with Fort Bragg, the Cumberland County, the judicial system, holds monthly crime mapping meetings. We have a crime analysis tool, part of our ArcGIS database, where they create maps every single week, and it's color-coded based on where the calls for service and where the crimes are. So if you target those areas specifically, and now the part that gets kind of tricky is who has control and access to those videos. If it's locked up somewhere in the police department where the law enforcement will have complete control over it, where people cannot break into it and use it for other purposes, so there has to be controls. And so you put them in the strategic locations where you know the crime is happening, and you put those protective things in place where people cannot get on their cell phones and break into the network and steal the video. So there is some potential use there.
All right, do we have any rebuttals?
I've got a quick rebuttal if it's okay, Mayor.
No, you've already.
No, that was my first.
That was your first day. You're right. You're good. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. It's past my bedtime.
Right. And another example, when the Boston Marathon bombing, what did they use? Those were all public cameras. And our police department, the 4 years I spent, they are very good at going after different grants. There's one of the ones they use is a police forfeiture funds, where they get money from drug busts, this and that, and they could take those monies that's not part of our tax base, and they could go out and buy cameras, they could go buy weapon systems or something else. So our police department is very creative in going out and finding other people's money for their needs.
Thank you, Mr. Mohn. Anyone else? All right, we'll go to the next question.
Okay, I'd like you to give yourself a job description. What are the key duties of the job that you're applying for? And if you're elected, tell us your priorities in order of importance.
Mr. Mohn.
Mr. Cook, this was a two-part question, correct? It was a job description and
give
priorities.
yourself a job description and then tell us what your priorities are
Okay.
if you're elected.
I agree with most of what they said about being a servant. This isn't, District 8 is not Ted Mohn's district. It belongs to the residents of District 8. So by going out and speaking to the residents at the community watch meetings around town, at the Walmarts, at the gas stations that you live in, you have to interact and you take their concerns. And then if there's enough that have the same concerns, and you come to your fellow city council members, you say, I've got this problem, what about you? So it's service, it's all about service. And priorities, my first one, and it's like everybody else, it's public safety. But public safety is more than just police officers. It's police, fire, and sanitation. When I was on council, we hired 17 more officers, crime prevention specialists, 20-some firemen and ladies, and then we improved the trash or sanitation department. So it's three problems.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with servanthood. I think servanthood is at the fundamental foundation of what it means to be a councilman. In addition to being a servant of the people, I think part of my job description would also include enabling citizens. Council has a unique perspective in which we understand the inner workings of the city and the county. We kind of know how to maneuver to get things done. Many of the citizens don't have the vaguest clue on how to call to get help with trash or get help with a UDO issue. Council, that's kind of our bread and butter. We need to do that. And it's far better for me to enable a citizen than it is to fix a problem. If I fix a problem, then I make them dependent, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. But by enabling the citizens in District 8, and as Bill Crispus said, enabling the people throughout the city, we become a stronger and better city.
Next question.
All right. Well, as long as we're talking about crime, let's keep talking about crime. And has the city done enough to slow the crime rate? It's getting late. What action would you take that hasn't been taken yet, and would you vote to increase taxes to put more police on the street if it was necessary?
Adams Act. Mr. Mohn.
As to the tax increase for police department, police officers or stuff, I don't think we need that. I was at the council strategic retreat, and they said that was their number one priority, and we've heard it before. If that's your overall number one priority, like the third year in a row, then it should be fully funded. Then you cut programs that don't serve as many people. Chief Bergermein started out with the community policing. They had the B Street initiative. We have a new chief, Medlock came in. He's taking a slightly different approach. He's doing sector policing. And so council has to provide the resources to the police department based on the professional recommendations. 2010, we had the PERF report, the police executive research firm. They came in and looked at our police department's organization, made some recommendations to how to reorganize, be better streamlined, recommended 50 some more officers. We're only able to hire 17. But we have to continue with all the good studies and get the resources there. And I'll use the 30 seconds of my rebuttal to finish.
Thank you, Mr. Mohn. We'll go to Mr. Pinkston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of my focuses, I'm pretty much all about prevention. And what I'd like to do in District 8, and hopefully it could spread to other districts, is I'd like to see a 50% increase in all community watch groups. There's enough neighborhoods where we really need so much more community watch activities. And that's something that council can really go in and help the community with. We can set the bylaws, we can get the constitutions. We have the skills to help the community get organized. And you know, all it takes is a few meetings for them to get organized, and they're off and running, and then we'll support. I'd like to see us use ceasefire a lot more than we've done. I think one of the greatest programs, and certainly underutilized, is Citizens on Patrol. Nothing is more encouraging than to see those cars drive by and knowing that you've got people looking out, the eyes and the ears of law enforcement.
All right, do we have any rebuttals?
Just a quick one, if it's okay, Mayor. Something else that we need to expand is the pre-release monitoring system. The city started it a little bit. That's where you put the little ankle bracelet on. You keep people in controlled areas, relatively low cost. And something else, a big thing is getting the judges and the magistrates involved, because the magistrate sets the bail. A couple of years back, about 3 elections, we had the highest DWI dismissal rate in Cumberland County, entire state, and we got rid of those judges, and now we did much better. So we need to kind of work with them also.
Thank you. Anybody? Ms. Robinson? Anyone else? Ms. Pinkston?
I think this is an area where we've talked about being full disclosure. This is great. I think we really need to go to our citizens. We need to say, if you want 15 more officers, here's what it's going to cost or not going to cost. If the citizens need to be aware that if we have more officers, there's going to be some kind of price that's going to have to be paid. And I think they'll want more officers. We just have to let the citizens know what the needs are.
Anyone else? Ms. Adams-Ack? All right, let's go to the next question.
Okay, next question. Many residents in the Big Bang annexation area in the west of the city are unhappy about the time they've had to wait for installation of the sewer system. On some streets, residents will wait many more years before they see the work completed. Are you satisfied with the pace of the sewer installation, or do you advocate some way of accelerating the work?
We will start with Ms. Robinson. Ms. Mohn?
No, I am not satisfied with the timeline. When the annexation happened, that council made their vote based on the information the city manager gave them. Okay, there was no plan at that time. The council found out to extend the services or how to pay for it. That was kind of like after the fact. So when we got on council, we came up with an initial plan, and PwC says they can only do about 500 homes roughly a year because of all the other projects. It has been looked at to see can we speed it up a little bit, and this is where the PwC City Council oversight, and we have fiduciary responsibility we can approve or disapprove some projects. Well, if we set that as a higher priority and we can justify it, then PwC can reallocate funds or speed up the sewer service potentially versus some of the other programs that they might want to do. So it does need to be looked at, and another up to 2025, that's just a little too long.
Mr. Pinkston?
No, I'm absolutely not satisfied, and we need to hold PwC accountable, but I think what I've seen more in this plan than anything is a lack of common sense. PwC will go down one side and do the sewers on one side of the road, and there's houses on the other side, and they're not scheduled for 4 more years. Common sense says, hey, well, here, let's do these. There needs to be some tweaking of the plan constantly, and I think that the citizens of this city deserve their sewers, and it's of the highest priority to go ahead and get these things taken care of. It will build great faith with the city. It'll restore some confidence in PwC. It's not going to make up for the lack of discomfort that the citizens have had, but at least we could do a much better job by showing our citizens that we care for them. So definitely we need to tweak the PwC plan to get sewers and do whatever it takes. And we need to speed that plan up and do it quickly.
Ms. Carr? I think we have time for one more round of questions.
Many of the city's roads are busy and congested, and some of them are in poor condition. What should Fayetteville do to improve the condition of its streets and to make them safer?
Mr. Mohn?
Excellent question. We have to realize that here in North Carolina, you have city streets and you have state streets. all of our major roads, well, you know, pick one. Those are all state maintained, controlled by the North Carolina Department of Transportation. The city only maintains our neighborhood streets. And the city gets Powellville money from the transportation, gas taxes, and it's right about 3.5 million or so a year. And they have to provide the street maintenance in the neighborhoods across, you know, a couple hundred miles of streets on $3.5-ish million a year. And that includes sidewalks. So if we want to get a speed limit reduced, like we did on Hope Loop Road, we have to ask NCDOT. They come out, they do a traffic count. Then they say, oh, yes, it meets it. City Council, you need to sign a resolution saying you really want to have it reduced. And then we do that, send it back up, and like 8 months later, you get it reduced from 55 to 45. So there's two different types of streets, and I didn't know that because I live in Illinois, and we had county streets.
Mr. Pinkston.
I have a personal interest in this. I'm a victim of Russell Street, which was under construction for almost 3 years. So the process is incredibly complicated, folks, and we have got to uncomplicate it. There's state streets and state and city streets. There's state and federal laws. We've got to somehow break through this and find some common sense to where when a road needs to be fixed, we can get it fixed without having to go to the White House and without having to go through 100 different engineers. I don't know what it would take, but I can tell you as a councilman that I would not rest until a resident gets the street they need to get fixed. You know, it's red tape that's killing us. It's not the fact that people don't want to do the work. The money's there, it's allocated, but red tape. So the quicker we can cut through red tape, the faster we can get our streets paved and maintained.
Mr. Hart? No other rebuttals. All right. Okay, we will go to closing statements, 1 minute each, and I don't like this chair anymore because it makes I look like a 5-year-old, my legs swinging off of it. So we'll go to closing statements, and we'll start with Mr. Hart.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And
Mr. Mohn.
Thank you, Mayor Pitts, Troy Williams, and WIDU family, Fayetteville Observer panelists, citizens for sure here in the audience who stuck it out for 3 hours, and the ones watching on TV. My name is Ted Mohn, City Council District 8 candidate. I would like you to, again, hear what you heard today. We have 2 other candidates running in District 8. You make your choice for the candidate of your choice based on what you hear, what you see, who you talk to. If you need to call me, people listening, you know, on the telephone, on the TV or radio, you can reach me on my cell phone at 910-495-3634. You can email me at tmohn for Ted Mohn at AOL.com. You know, you got about a week to make your decision before the primary election. And should you elect me again, I'm gonna try my best. I'm here to represent you, not represent Ted Mohn. You know, it's not about me. It's about what you collectively think, and then how we as a team have to work together, no matter who gets elected.
Thank you, Mr. Mohn. Mr. Pinkston.
For almost 40 years, I have watched Fayetteville, the ebb and the flow, the grow, the going forward, and the going backwards. There was a point in my life when I didn't think Fayetteville was very much, but slowly Fayetteville began to grow on me. And as I watched the downtown grow, I began to develop a passion for this city. When it came time to retire, we made the decision, Fayetteville is where we are going to stay. This is a great city. It is a great city, and Fayetteville is on the move. And I began to, that passion grew and grew as I helped councilmen get elected and judges and other politicians. And, you know, I made the decision that by running for city council, I could bring that same passion, the passion that has led me in business, the passion that has led me in my church, the passion that has led me in my life, that I could bring those drives, those desires, those energies, those ambitions, and we could work together to make Fayetteville a great, safe, and beautiful city.
All right, let's give all our candidates a hand, please. Thank you, and good luck next week. And we want to thank our sponsors, WIDU and the Fayetteville Observer, for helping us to put this